Shit, how much you trying to get?
Couple M's.
Shit, that's it?
Nah, man, you ain't gotta do all that.
In 2011, a rapper who once worked as a correctional officer in South Florida bought a single chicken wing restaurant in Memphis, Tennessee. 14 years later, he owns close to 30 of them. Each location pulls in an average of $2 million a year. That is more than $50 million in chicken wings sold annually by one man. And he has not flipped a single wing himself. The man is Rick Ross. The question is no longer whether the rapper became a businessman. The question is whether the chicken made him a billionaire. To understand how Rick Ross built a fast food empire, you have to understand the man before the empire. William Leonard Roberts II was born in Mississippi in 1976 and raised in Carroll City, Miami. Before the chains, before the mansions, before the Maybach, he was a correctional officer at the South Florida Reception Center. He worked that job from 1995 to 1997, 18 months in uniform, 18 months guarding inmates in a state prison while writing rap lyrics in his notebook on the side. That detail matters, because almost every story about Rick Ross frames him as a rapper who got lucky in business. The truth is the opposite. He was a working class kid who studied money long before he studied music. He dropped out of Albany State University on a football scholarship and went home to Miami. He spent a decade trying to break into the rap industry. He failed audition after audition. He recorded mixtape after mixtape. By the time he finally signed his first major deal in 2006 with Def Jam, he was already 30 years old. That is not young in hip-hop. That is, in industry terms, ancient. His debut album, Port of Miami, went straight to #1 on the Billboard charts. The single Hustlin' made him a household name. The lyrics famously declared, "Every day I'm hustlin'," and he meant it literally, because while he was building his music career, Ross had been watching another business the whole time, a small chicken wing chain founded in 1994 in Garland, Texas, by an entrepreneur named Antonio Swad. The chain was called Wingstop. By 2002, Wingstop had sold its 2 millionth wing. By the late 2000s, it was expanding nationally. Ross had been eating their lemon pepper wings since the early 2000s, and every time he pulled up to a location, he told Forbes years later, he had the same thought: yo, this is something I need to do. By 2011, he had the money. He flew to Memphis, Tennessee. He told reporters, quote, "It is time for us to make it happen in Memphis. With Wingstop, we are bringing in the food I like and adding jobs to the community. It is a double win," end quote. He opened his first store, and that single decision is where the empire begins. By 2014, he was up to 5 locations. Some of those stores were reporting 50% jumps in monthly revenue after he attached his name to them. By 2016, he had 10. By 2023, close to 30. And in September of 2021, in a move that tells you everything about how he thinks about wealth, he bought a Wingstop location and gifted it to his son, William L. Roberts III, for his 16th birthday. Most kids get a car at 16. His son got a restaurant. Now here is where most people get the story wrong. They think Rick Ross is a celebrity who slapped his face on a chicken brand. He is not. He is a franchisee. And franchising is one of the most boring, most reliable, and most misunderstood wealth machines in American business. Let me explain how the machine actually works. When you franchise a Wingstop, you do not own the brand. You pay the parent company an upfront franchise fee of around $20,000 per location. Then you spend somewhere between $400,000 and roughly $900,000 to build out the restaurant. Equipment, lease, signage, hood vents, fryers. Then you pay an ongoing royalty fee on every dollar you sell, usually around 6% of gross revenue, plus another 4% for national advertising. In exchange, you get the brand, the supply chain, the menu, the training systems, and the foot traffic. Now here's the number that changes everything. The average Wingstop location in the United States now pulls in over $2 million a year in sales. $2 million. That number is called average unit volume, or AUV. In 2022, it was 1.6 million. By 2024, it crossed 2 million. Wingstop CEO Michael Skipworth has publicly said the company is targeting $3 million per location. Of that 2 million in sales, after food costs, labor, rent, royalties, and the rest, a healthy Wingstop franchise can net between 10 and 15% in profit. That works out to roughly $200,000 to $300,000 in pure profit per store per year. Now multiply that by 25 to 30 stores, you are looking at $5 to $9 $1.9 million a year in franchise profit alone from chicken year after year, whether Ross releases an album or not. And here's the part that makes it even better for him. He does not run any of these stores personally. He has a corporate structure. The Mississippi cluster is held under an entity called Boss Wings Enterprises LLC. It is co-owned by Ross, his sister Tawanda Roberts, and his mother Tommy Roberts. His mother is on the paperwork. His sister is on the paperwork. This is a family-run holding company. He hires general managers, he hires district supervisors. He shows up for grand openings. He posts about it on Instagram. Then he gets back on the tour bus. The chicken cooks itself. There is one more moment in this story worth knowing about. In June of 2021, the United States had a national chicken wing shortage. Wholesale wing prices were spiking. Restaurants across the country were scrambling. Wingstop's response was to launch a new sub-brand called Thigh Stop. They started selling chicken thighs instead of wings. Rick Ross publicly helped launch the campaign. He promoted it across his channels. It worked. The company moved millions of pounds of dark meat that would have otherwise sat in freezers. That is not a rapper doing a brand deal. That is a strategic partner stepping in during a supply chain crisis. The corporate office in Texas is on a first-name basis with him for a reason. But this was only the beginning of the empire, because Ross did not stop at one chain. He looked at the numbers, he saw what worked, and he started stacking. After Wingstop, he moved into Checkers and Rallies. Those are the small drive-through burger restaurants you see on the side of the highway, with the red and white checkerboard logos. Ross owns multiple locations. He even bought a flagship Checkers in his hometown of Miami. The strategy was identical to Wingstop. Buy proven franchises in food categories with high turnover, low ticket prices, and strong brand recognition. Then he added a different kind of asset entirely: spirits, specifically a French champagne brand called Luc Belaire. Belaire is owned by a New York company called Sovereign Brands. Ross does not own the brand outright. He partners with them. He promotes Belaire in his music videos, on his social media, at every party he throws. In exchange, he gets equity points and revenue sharing. Belaire grew from a small startup into one of the fastest growing sparkling wine brands in America, in part because of his promotion. Then he did the same thing with Boom Boo Rum. Same parent company, same model, equity for influence. He even has a grooming line called Rich by Rick Ross, hair care products built around his own brand persona. He has cannabis investments in California and Michigan. He has stakes in Rap Snacks, the chip brand. He had a Reebok endorsement deal. He published a memoir called Hurricanes that became a New York Times bestseller, and he runs his own record label, Maybach Music Group, which has signed artists like Meek Mill and Wale. Every single one of those ventures follows the same logic. Use the brand, earn the equity, hold the asset. That is not a rapper's playbook. That is a holding company's playbook. And it is why his net worth as of 2025 sits at roughly $150 million, up from around $45 million just a few years earlier. More than triple in under a decade. So what is the edge? What does Rick Ross do that other celebrity investors do not? Three things. First, he picks categories that do not depend on his fame. This is the part most rappers get wrong. When you sell sneakers or clothing or perfume tied to your name, the day people stop caring about you, the business dies. Wingstop does not care if Rick Ross is on the charts. People want chicken wings whether his next album drops or not. Same with Checkers, same with Belaire, same with the real estate. He chose categories where the brand survives without him. Second, he uses his music as marketing infrastructure. Every time he mentions Wingstop in a song, he is running a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign for free. In 2010, he name-dropped lemon pepper wings on the song MC Hammer. In 2012, he did it again on Trap Boomin' with Gucci Mane. He does it on Instagram, he does it in interviews, he does it on podcasts. The corporate Wingstop office has openly credited him in their press releases for boosting brand awareness. A franchisee in Brooklyn, DJ Diallo, told Forbes that customers walk into his store and assume Ross owns it personally. That is brand transfer. He turned his rap persona, the biggest boss, into a free national advertising channel for the same restaurants he owns. No other franchisee on earth has that. Third, and this is the most important one, he reinvests. He does not spend like a rapper. He spends like a landlord. When he buys a property, he buys it to keep it. And here is a number most people miss. Wingstop went public on the United States stock market in 2015. Since this IPO, the company's stock has climbed by over 1,100%, 11 times its original price. That means while Rick Ross was opening franchise after franchise, the underlying brand he tied his name to was also exploding in value on Wall Street. He could not have picked a better wave to ride. He chose a category, chose a franchisor, and let public markets do the rest of the marketing for him. His most famous estate is the Promised Land in Fayetteville, Georgia, 235 acres, 109 rooms, private lake, horse stable, bowling alley, recording studio, home theater. He bought it from former boxer Evander Holyfield, who had lost it in financial trouble. Ross paid roughly $6 million for it. He has since invested millions more in renovations. The estate was used as a filming location for the movie Coming to America, starring Eddie Murphy, which means Ross gets paid every time Hollywood shoots there. The property is now valued at over $10 million. His total real estate portfolio is estimated at around $50 million, and he has done all of this while continuing to release music, tour, and run the record label. The man is, in the most literal sense, a holding company in a chinchilla coat. But here is where the story gets complicated, because every empire has a reckoning, and Rick Ross had his in August of 2022. The United States Department of Labor opened an investigation into Boss Wings Enterprises LLC. That is the company that holds 5 of his Wingstop franchises in South Haven, Mississippi. It is co-owned by Ross, his sister Tawanda Roberts, and his mother Tommy Roberts. The investigation found that Boss Wings had illegally deducted money from employee paychecks. The deductions were for uniforms, for safety training, for background checks, for cash register shortages. Those deductions pushed some employees below the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. The Department of Labor also found that one of the stores allowed a 15-year-old employee to work past 10 p.m. on multiple occasions in June of 2021. That is a direct violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act, which prohibits 14 and 15-year-olds from working past 7 p.m. during the summer. The total penalty was $114,427. That covered back wages, liquidated damages, and civil money penalties. 244 workers were owed money. Now, in the context of an empire worth $150 million, $114,000 is rounding error. Ross paid it. He went on Instagram and addressed it directly. Sitting behind a grand piano in a Balmain sweater and a diamond necklace, he said, quote, "When you are running a business, there will be mistakes, but as the biggest boss, you never make the same mistake twice. Taking accountability is big when you are the biggest." End quote. Wingstop corporate distanced itself immediately. They pointed out that the franchise locations are independently owned and operated. The company itself was not party to the violations. And that, right there, is the hidden tension of the entire empire. Because franchising gives Rick Ross enormous leverage. He gets the brand without building it. He gets the supply chain without owning it. He gets the playbook without writing it. But it also means every problem at a single store, every underpaid worker, every minor violation lands on his name, not on Wingstop, on him. So is Rick Ross on track to become a billionaire? The math says it is possible, but it is harder than it looks. To get from $150 million to $1 billion, he would need to multiply his net worth by nearly 7 times. His Wingstop empire alone, at current AUV growth, could potentially double in value if Wingstop hits its $3 million per store target. His Belaire and Bumbu equity stakes could pay out massively if Sovereign Brands ever sells. His real estate could appreciate. The cannabis investments, if federal legalization happens in the United States, could explode in value. Diddy hit $1 billion. Jay-Z hit $1 billion. Dr. Dre hit $1 billion. The blueprint exists, but all 3 of them got there through one massive single exit. Diddy with Ciroc and Sean John, Jay-Z with the sale of his Ace of Spades champagne brand to LVMH for hundreds of millions of dollars, Dre with the sale of Beats to Apple for $3 billion. One deal, one signature, one wire transfer. That is how you cross 10 figures in modern hip-hop. Rick Ross does not have a single exit on the horizon. He has a portfolio of stable, mid-sized, cash-flowing assets, which is, in a way, a more boring and more reliable model. The franchises will not get sold tomorrow. The grooming line will not be acquired by Procter & Gamble next quarter. The cannabis stakes are sitting in a regulatory gray zone. The Promised Land estate is not on Zillow. And here is the irony at the heart of the whole story. The very thing that made him rich, the slow, steady, franchise-by-franchise grind, is the same thing that makes the billion-dollar line harder to cross. Rappers who chased a hit got a payout. Rappers who chased ownership got a paycheck. Both can work, but only one of them puts you on the Forbes billionaires list before you turn 60. So the chicken keeps cooking, the champagne keeps pouring, the stores keep opening. But to cross the billion-dollar line, he will need something he has not had yet: a buyer, or a sale, or a moment when one of his quiet, boring cash flow machines suddenly becomes the asset somebody else cannot live without. Until that day comes, the biggest boss in hip-hop is still the biggest franchisee in hip-hop. And the question of whether the wings can carry him all the way to 10 figures is the one no one, not even Rose himself, can answer yet.